Hey everyone, and welcome to RUBIN'S Mind Lab, where we break down the latest research into what it really means. Ever wonder how your brain processes language so quickly and efficiently? That's the big question this new study dives into, you see. When we read or listen, our brains are constantly making predictions about what words are coming next. If a word is super predictable, our brain seems to handle it with ease. But if a word pops up that is totally unexpected, it is like hitting a mental speed bump. This makes sense, right? But scientists have been debating how this happens. So here is the core debate. One idea, called the facilitation view, suggests that when a word is highly predictable, our brain actually prepares for it, like getting it ready in advance. This makes processing the word super fast, a kind of linear boost. The other idea, the cost view, says that when a word is unexpected, it is actually very informative. Your brain has to put in more effort to update its understanding of the sentence, and this effort costs you time. This cost, they argue, is more like a logarithmic scale small differences in predictability. At the low end matter a lot more, like trying to decipher a really weird clue compared to small differences at the high end, where things are already pretty clear. This is where our researchers come in. They propose something really cool. What if both of these things are happening at the same time? What if your brain is not only predicting the next word, but also updating its understanding based on the word that just appeared? They hypothesize that these two processes, prediction and updating, have different signatures and can actually be seen as separate but coexisting mechanisms. Think of it like this. Your brain is like a detective. It's always gathering clues, the words you hear or read, and updating its theory of what is happening. That is the probabilistic inference, the updating part. But if the clues strongly suggest a certain culprit, the detective might start to focus on that suspect and gather evidence specifically related to them, even before they've seen all the evidence. That's the preactivation, the proactive prediction part. The researchers thought these two might create a combination of effects, a sort of blended response. So how did they test this? They started by looking at an older study by Brothers and Cooperberg, or BK21 for short. In that study, participants read sentences, and researchers measured how long it took them to read each word. They manipulated how predictable each word was, creating sentences that were either high, medium, or low in predictability. Our researchers reanalyzed that data, looking at different ways to measure predictability. But the reanalysis wasn't enough. To get a clear picture, they did a huge replication of the BK21 experiment with nearly 1,000 participants. They wanted to make sure their findings weren't just a fluke. They also brought in modern language models, like AI that understands language, to help measure predictability and see how that related to how long people took to read. And in a really neat twist, they used a powerful AI language model called GPT-2. They used its internal state transitions as a sort of proxy for how much preactivation might be happening in a reader's brain. The idea is that if your brain is preactivating something, its internal state should be similar to the state it will be in when it actually encounters that word. They measured this state distance in the AI and compared it to human reading times. Okay, so what did they find? In the reanalysis of the original BK21 data, they saw hints that both linear and logarithmic effects were present, but the data wasn't strong enough to be completely sure. Then came the big replication with almost 1,000 people. This larger dataset provided much stronger evidence. This figure shows that when they accounted for both linear and logarithmic effects, the model fit the data much better than when they only considered one or the other. This is big. It means that both types of effects seem to be happening simultaneously. Remember the AI thing? They found that the state distance in the AI model also had a relationship with how predictable words were. And this relationship was sublinear, similar to what they saw with human reading times. Even more importantly, this state distance explained some of the differences in reading times that were not explained by just looking at word predictability alone. This is the clincher. The AI's state distance, which represents preactivation, and the surprisal, which represents probabilistic inference, both independently predicted how long people took to read. This strongly suggests that these are two separate processes at play. So your brain isn't just going, oh, this word is predictable, I'll read it faster. It is also going, oh, this word was unexpected, I need to update my understanding of this sentence, and that takes a bit more time. In short, the researchers argue that your brain does two main things. When you read or listen, it predicts what is coming, preactivation, and it updates its understanding based on what it just received, probabilistic inference. These are two different mental operations with different ways they show up in our behavior, like reading speed. Why is this important? Well, for a long time, many theories focus heavily on surprisal. The more surprising a word, the more cognitive effort. This implied that predictability was the only big factor. But this new research suggests that is not the whole story. The preactivation part adds another layer. showing that our brains are actively trying to be efficient by setting up future processing, not just reacting to what has already happened. They also point out that surprisal alone hasn't been able to explain everything we see in language processing. There are other effects, like how often words appear, and how sentences are structured, that surprisal doesn't fully account for. This idea of preactivation could help fill in those gaps. And this research helps explain why previous studies have sometimes produced conflicting results. Some studies might have been better at picking up the linear preactivation effects, while others were better at seeing the logarithmic inference effects. They suggest that different methods and different ways of measuring predictability in earlier studies might have emphasized one process over the other. Now, what are the limitations? They admit that self-paced reading, where people click a button to reveal each word, isn't exactly like natural reading. It might create some artificial effects. Also, they acknowledge that their AI model is a proxy for brain activity, not a direct measure. And they found some puzzling things in their data about how words after the main focus word affected reading times, which they don't fully understand yet. Despite these limitations, the core claim stands strong. They found clear evidence that both prediction and updating processes are happening as we understand language, and we can see their effects in how long it takes us to read. To me, this research is incredibly exciting because it moves us closer to understanding the actual how of language processing the algorithms our brains are using. It's not just about the big picture of information theory, but the nitty-gritty mechanics of how our minds work. It suggests our brains are incredibly clever. Not just passively processing information, but actively anticipating and adjusting. Think about how this might apply to learning new languages, or even to understanding why some writing is easier to digest than other. It all points to a dynamic, predictive system constantly trying to stay one step ahead. And the fact that they could even use an AI model to simulate part of this brain process is mind-blowing, showing how much we can learn by comparing our own cognitive machinery to artificial intelligence. It really highlights the complexity and elegance of human language comprehension. What do you think? Does this explanation of how your brain works with words make sense to you? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this dive into the science of the mind, please give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to RUBIN'S Mind Lab for more, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next exploration. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.